Imagine you're standing in the city of Rome in the year 476. A soldier named Odoacer walks into the palace. He removes a teenage boy from the throne. The boy's name is Romulus Augustulus, and he is the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire. No battle, no burning city, just a quiet handover of power, and an empire that had lasted for over 1,000 years is suddenly gone. That's the story you were taught. Barbarians at the gates. A great civilization crushed by outside invaders. Rome falls in one dramatic moment, and the lights go out on the ancient world. But the real story is far stranger. Rome didn't fall in a day. It didn't even fall in a single century. And the people living through it barely noticed it happening at all. So what actually killed the most powerful empire in the ancient world? The answer has almost nothing to do with barbarians, and everything to do with what Rome did to itself, long before anyone breached its walls. Start with the empire at its height. By the 2nd century, Rome controls territory stretching from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to Syria. Millions of people live under Roman law, speak Latin as a common language, and use the same currency. It is, by any measure, the most successful political project the ancient world had ever seen. And that success is exactly where the trouble begins. Here's the first thing that breaks: money. Roman coins were originally made of real silver, but as the empire grew, so did its expenses. Armies needed paying, borders needed defending. Roman emperors, generation after generation, quietly began cutting the silver content of their coins and replacing it with cheaper metal. By the 3rd century, a Roman denarius that once contained pure silver was down to less than 5%. Prices skyrocketed. Trade became unstable. People stopped trusting the money in their own pockets. Does that sound familiar? It should. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book, and Rome ran it for over 200 years. Then came the chaos at the top. Historians call the years between 235 and 284 the crisis of the 3rd century, and the numbers tell you everything. In roughly 50 years, Rome had more than 20 different emperors. Most of them didn't die of old age. They were assassinated, overthrown, or killed in battle by their own rivals. Entire regions broke away and declared themselves separate empires just to survive the instability. The throne of Rome had become less a position of power and more a death sentence with a crown attached. You have to ask, how does an empire function like that? The honest answer is barely. One emperor tried to fix it. His name was Diocletian, and he took power in the year 284 after the crisis had nearly torn Rome apart. His solution was radical. He split the empire in two, an eastern half and a western half, each with its own ruler, because one man alone could no longer govern something so vast. It worked for a while, but it also planted a seed. From that point on, Rome was never fully one empire again. It was two empires, sharing a name, slowly drifting apart. Meanwhile, army itself was changing in ways most people never learn about. Roman legions had once been made up of Roman citizens, loyal to Rome itself. But by the 4th and 5th centuries, the empire increasingly relied on foreign soldiers, many of them Germanic tribesmen, to fill its ranks. These weren't invaders. They were employees. Rome paid them, armed them, and trained them, because there simply weren't enough Roman citizens left willing or able to serve. The empire was, in effect, outsourcing its own defense to the very peoples it once called barbarians. And when the money to pay those soldiers ran short, or the promises Rome made to them broke down, something predictable happened. In the year 410, a Visigothic leader named Alaric led his forces into the city of Rome itself. Alaric wasn't some foreign warlord who had never seen Rome before. He had served in the Roman army. He had negotiated with Roman officials for years, asking for land and payment for his people. When Rome refused him one too many times, he did what any unpaid, disrespected general might do. He turned his soldiers on the city that broke its word. Rome had not been captured by an enemy from outside its world. It had been struck by a partner it failed to hold up its end of the bargain with. So when you picture the fall of Rome, forget the image of foreign hordes storming untouched walls. Picture instead a slow unraveling. A currency nobody trusted, a government that ate its own leaders, an army built from outsiders Rome depended on but never fully respected, each piece weakening the next, for nearly 2 centuries, until the final collapse in 476 wasn't a shock at all. It was almost a formality. Here's the twist almost nobody tells you. The eastern half of the empire, the half Diocletian had split off, didn't fall in 476. It kept going. Historians call it the Byzantine Empire, and it survived for another 1,000 years, until Constantinople finally fell in 1453. So when someone says Rome fell, they're only ever talking about half the story. The other half outlived the Western collapse by an entire millennium. Even more strangely, many Romans living through 476 didn't experience it as an ending at all. Odoacer, the soldier who deposed the last Western emperor, didn't burn the city or declare a new nation. He simply ruled Italy in the name of the Eastern Emperor, using existing Roman institutions, Roman law, and Roman officials. For years afterward, ordinary people in Italy kept farming the same land, worshipping in the same buildings, and paying taxes to essentially the same bureaucracy. The empire didn't vanish in a flash. It faded so gradually that historians still argue about exactly when it actually ended. The 18th century writer Edward Gibbon spent 6 volumes trying to answer that very question in his work, The History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. He blamed everything from moral decay to the rise of Christianity. Modern historians see something more mundane and more unsettling. Rome didn't die from one dramatic wound. It died from the slow accumulation of unpaid debts, both financial and political, that it kept deferring instead of confronting. Why does this matter now? Because the pattern Rome followed isn't ancient history in the way you might think. It's a pattern every large, complex system risks repeating. Debase the thing people trust to hold value, and confidence quietly erodes. Let leadership become a game of musical chairs, and long-term decisions stop being made. Depend entirely on people or systems you don't actually respect or fairly compensate, and eventually they stop showing up for you. None of that requires an invasion. It only requires time, and enough people looking away from the slow cracks while celebrating how strong the walls still look. Rome's empire didn't fall because it was weak. It fell because it was strong enough for centuries to survive its own worst decisions, right up until it wasn't. That's the quiet warning underneath the story, not that great things get destroyed by outside forces, but that they can hollow themselves out from within so slowly that by the time the boy on the throne is finally removed, nobody left is even surprised. So think again about that day in 476. A soldier walks into a palace. A teenage emperor is quietly removed. No battle, no burning city, just the final, unremarkable page of a story that had actually been ending for 200 years, one broken promise at a time.